Starsky and Hutch was a made-for-TV crime drama introduced in 1975. Inspired by the 1974 film Busting, the production team spent time shadowing two real-life undercover detectives, who would end up being the basis for the show's characters, later leading to a lawsuit. The two characters being streetwise New York transplant and Army veteran David Starsky, played by Paul Michael Glasser, and blonde intellectual Kenneth Hutch Hutchinson, played by David Soul, who also had a singing career.
Don't give up on us, baby.
The two undercover detectives fight crime and corruption in Bay City, California, also known as Los Angeles, or more specifically, San Pedro, with what would later become the stereotypical TV police captain. But the primary and most popular supporting character of the show would be bar owner and informant Huggy Bear, who would become all but synonymous with the phrase pimped out.
I'm Mr. Sweetness and Light.
And almost got his own spin-off show, Huggy Bear and the Turkey, which never made it into production. But what we are here to talk about today is the car, sometimes referred to by the duo's call sign, Zebra 3. The initial intent was to use an early Camaro convertible, but studio contracts and sponsorships meant the car ended up being a new Ford. In this case, a 1975 and/or 76 Ford Grand Torino, a factory red car that the studio added a white stripe to, as well as classic slotted mag wheels and air shocks to raise the rear. The car would be dubbed the striped tomato by the staff, and the phrase would even make it into the show, describing a car that was initially criticized as being a poor choice for an undercover police car, as it was too flashy. The original cars used in the pilot had the 5.8-liter 351 V8, but they lacked the power needed for some of the stunts, and California regulations at the time limited modifications on new cars, so later models had bigger 6.6-liter 400, or even 7.5-liter 460, and/or a higher-than-stock gear ratio. It's said that Paul Glasser, or Starsky, disliked the car so much that he would intentionally bounce it over curbs or into trash cans. Some attributed this to his lack of training as a professional driver, but it quickly became an expected aspect of the show. There seems to be some discrepancy on how many cars were actually used in the show over the 4 seasons. Some sources say as few as 4, others suggest closer to a dozen, counting the pilot cars, and including the use of a studio-owned 429 swapped car. But the continual repairs to the cars they used were increasingly more obvious as the seasons went on. The show and the car were popular enough that Ford would build 1,000 of their own for the 1976 model year, with the white stripe as a simple paint option, without the air shocks, and using Ford's Magnum 500 wheels. And although the focus is primarily around Starsky's Torino, Hutch naturally has his own car, which looks much more like the typical undercover police car of the time, a tannish 1973 Ford Galaxie 500. I don't think they ever explained how a 2-year-old car got so beat up, and although it may look more like urban camouflage, somehow the door would cause the horn to go off. And there was an episode where Starsky tries to get Hutch into something a bit more flashy, a custom lowrider El Camino, but he has no interest in it.
It's an old lady's car. Think I want to ride around in a blueberry on wheels?
Preferring to keep his uncool Galaxie.
Now here's a car with some character to it.
And according to David Soul, it was faster than Starsky's Gran Torino anyway. But people tuned in weekly to get their dose of car chases. With the Gran Torino sometimes being referred to as the show's third star. And although the show started out attempting to be a gritty crime drama, by the 3rd season it had started to become a more family-friendly buddy cop kind of show, with less violence, to much criticism, both in and out of the studio. And after 4 years, the show was effectively replaced by the Dukes of Hazzard.
I didn't even get a chance to get into my character.
With the striped tomato even appearing in an early episode of that. Then in 2004, there would be a Starsky and Hutch movie. Starring Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, it obviously didn't take itself too seriously, but it certainly tried to duplicate the look, although it also seemed to try to pay tribute to several classics and not just the original show. everything from Easy Rider to Saturday Night Fever. Owen Wilson even sang a David Soul song.
Don't give up on us, baby.
And perhaps one of the best casting choices of all time, Huggy Bear was played by none other than Snoop Dogg, driving his personal 1979 Lincoln Continental Town Car.
Since 76, it won't be out till next year. But I know some people that rob some people.
Naturally, the red and white Gran Torino returned as well, perhaps receiving a little more love and attention than it did in the TV show, although even more of them may have been crashed for the making of the movie, and perhaps not all intentionally. And when the car was destroyed at the end of the film, they would buy an identical one to replace it, from David Soul and Paul Michael Glasser, a nice tie-in to the original show. The movie had mixed reviews, earning 2 Golden Raspberries, while Ebert called it the best of the 70s recycle jobs, which may not exactly be high praise. But the Striped Tomato remains one of the most iconic TV cars of all time. Perhaps second only to the General Lee. The Gran Torino has also gained some collectability in the last few years, at least partially due to Clint Eastwood's movie, Gran Torino, which kinda hyped up the car.
Now that's a nice car.
1972 Gran Torino.
Cobra jet engine.
And a Starsky and Hutch replica has also become the TV car for the show The Good Doctor. It's amazing how not much more than a simple stripe and a couple of car chases can turn a car into an icon. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.